What's good? It's Woog. It's Teo time. Fresh off of his second career best performance, we have Teofimo Lopez, 19 wins and 1 loss, defending his WBO light welterweight title against Jamaine Ortiz, 17 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw. This is an interesting battle of young fighters. One of them, Teofimo Lopez, is now a 2-time champion. He was arguably undisputed, at least a 3-belt holder at lightweight, with one of the biggest upsets in recent memory. This was October of 2020 during that COVID 2020 year, and Teofimo Lopez took a huge gamble after becoming an IBF champ by stopping Richard Comey in the 2nd round, which was also on the heels of a very difficult fight against Masayoshi Nakatani, where Teofimo Lopez kind of underperformed, and we're going to get into the lack of consistency relatively around Teo's game. But after becoming the IBF lightweight champ, Lopez rolled the dice and took on Vasily Lomachenko. This is when Lomachenko was still like a top 3 pound-for-pound fighter, and so the odds were pretty wide in favor of Vasily Lomachenko. In fact, I remember thinking, is Teofimo Lopez making a career-destroying decision in fighting somebody who could just punish you and make you pay in the way that Vasily Lomachenko can if you are not ready for that tall task? Well, not only did Teofimo Lopez take that fight, but he ended up winning a unanimous decision. It was a close competitive fight where Lomachenko definitely rallied back in the second half of the fight, but Teofimo Lopez finished the fight very strong in the 12th round and ended up winning and taking all of Lomachenko's belts. That ended up being like the performance of the year. It was one of the upsets of the year. Teofimo Lopez, in a lot of people's lists, was the fighter of the year. So this was kind of a king-making performance. And out of that young group that was coming up, it was Teofimo Lopez, Gervonta Davis was a couple years older, Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia, and then Shakur Stevenson a couple divisions below at the time. It was first Teofimo Lopez who took the plunge into the deep end and fought Lomachenko and beat him. And then in his very next fight against George Kambosos, which was postponed like 4 or 5 different times, like they could not get this fight together. It changed platforms, it changed networks. There were bidding wars after Top Rank didn't want to pay what Lopez wanted for that fight. Triller had the fight for a while. They're the ones who won the bidding war. And then they ended up losing the fight when one of the fighters tested positive for COVID-19, so they had to postpone it again. Triller ended up losing the fight. Matchroom DAZN picked the fight up, so they eventually fought. And Teofimo Lopez entered that fight with one of the worst game plans we've ever seen from an elite fighter. He basically threw any bit of strategic acumen and boxing IQ, he threw it out of the ring and looked like he was just hell-bent on scoring like a first-round knockout against George Kambosos. So you've got Teofimo Lopez kind of going head over skis, looking to land the home run, and he actually got caught towards the end of the first round, got dropped by Kambosos, and this ended up being like a bit of a slugfest where Teofimo Lopez, again, he didn't show the boxing IQ and the patience that he had in most of his fights prior to that. So this ended up being a very close fight, but George Kambosos, rightfully, I would say, won the split decision against Teofimo Lopez. And at that time, people were questioning, Teofimo Lopez, like where he was at head-wise, like in terms of being able to keep it together and to stay focused. And, he sounded a bit delusional, like he actually thought he won the fight. Now, he was reportedly battling a pretty serious internal injury at the time of the fight, to where it sounds like he probably shouldn't have been in the ring if those reports are accurate. So I think that a lot of fight fans are kind of giving him a mulligan or a pass for that performance, but there was still like a lingering question on Teofimo Lopez's commitment, his relationship with his dad / trainer, because you could listen to like the corner's advice between rounds. It sounded kind of bizarre. Like in one breath, his dad would say something to the effect of "be patient," and then literally seconds later, he would say, and I'm paraphrasing, What are you waiting for? Just go ahead and take him out. Stuff like that. Very weird fight. Just a bizarre night. And again, George Kambosos took Teofimo Lopez's belts from him. And then Teo moved up to 140. He stopped Pedro Campa in his comeback fight, stopped him in the 7th round. Pedro Campa was actually pretty competitive early in that one. Pedro Campa was actually very competitive against Brandon Lee. a while ago. But yeah, Pedro Campa is one of those opponents that you've got to be on your game to be able to handle. And then Teofimo Lopez fought Sandor Martin, the same Sandor Martin who defeated Mikey Garcia, the same Sandor Martin who, you know, people were talking about maybe Devin Haney versus Sandor Martin, which I don't know if the boxing public has much of an appetite for because they are both technicians, so to speak. But yeah, Sandor Martin fought Teofimo Lopez very competitively. And it's very hard to look good against a fighter like Sandor Martin. Teofimo Lopez looked like he was chasing him. He was walking into punches. He got dropped at a certain point of the fight. Watching that fight, I thought that Sandor Martin did enough to win it. Teofimo Lopez was awarded the split decision win. And that was the night that, you know, on the camera, they caught Teofimo Lopez, you know, asking the people in front of him, do I still have it? Because it was on one of those Heisman nights, which Teofimo Lopez has fought in a few of those. But this was a very unremarkable performance. Again, against a pretty good boxer who is going to be having a tough time getting big fights against anybody, like with the names. People don't want to fight Sandor Martin. But yeah, Teofimo Lopez, I believe, got away with one there. And then he fights Josh Taylor for Josh Taylor's WBO belt. Now, before that, Josh Taylor was the undisputed champion. He got his belt stripped one by one in pursuance of making a rematch against Jack Catterall. So he lost the IBF, the WBC, the WBA, was only without losing a fight, even though some thought that in this first fight with Catterall, that Catterall deserved that decision win. But Josh Taylor came away from that fight retaining all 4 of his belts. But again, he got stripped one by one. And then he doesn't even end up making that fight with Catterall and instead defends the WBO belt against Teofimo Lopez. Teofimo Lopez made Josh Taylor look every bit of that 33-ish, at 32, 33 years old. Josh Taylor might only be 32 or 33, but in boxing years, he seems a bit older. Now, a lot of people don't remember this. Josh Taylor was a significant betting favorite against Teofimo Lopez. So you could argue that Teofimo Lopez has kind of shocked the world twice. He wasn't as big a favorite as Vasily Lomachenko was against Teo, but a lot of people thought that Josh Taylor was going to win that one, especially if he was the same Josh Taylor that we saw against Regis Prograis and, you know, in those very good Jose Ramirez, Ivan Baranchyk, in those fights, Victor Postal. Well, as I was watching the fight, I thought that Josh Taylor got off to a good start. I thought that Josh Taylor might have won like 2 out of the first 3 rounds. But halfway into round 4, I saw things start to turn around. I thought that Teo won the 5th round, and then it was almost all Teofimo Lopez from that point forward, where there were moments late in the fight where it looked like Josh Taylor was holding on, trying to survive and just go the distance at a certain point. But I really do think that Josh Taylor's legs were lacking some of the youthful exuberance. Now, he still has some of the same roughhouse tactics, like he was hitting Teofimo Lopez in the clinch. He hit Teofimo Lopez as Teofimo Lopez was like sitting against the ropes. Josh Taylor like snuck a pretty hard punch in there, got a hard warning from the ref, stuck his glove out to tap gloves with Teofimo Lopez, and the millisecond within the glove tap, he hits Teofimo with a right jab. Being a southpaw, he hit him with a southpaw lead jab after touching gloves. So Josh Taylor still had his roughhouse tactics, but I really do think that his legs looked heavy after like the 4th round. It didn't look like the same Josh Taylor. And yeah, Teofimo Lopez was a more calculated, higher IQ fighter than a lot of the guys Josh Taylor had been in there with. But I just didn't see the same tenacity where he's able to jump in and out, throw combinations, and then get out, jump right back in. And there, it just hit a certain point where I saw the leg fatigue wearing Josh Taylor down. But yeah, Teofimo Lopez ran away with that one, ended up winning a convincing unanimous decision and becoming a 2-division champion, winning that WBO 140-pound title. But in this upcoming fight, where he's going to be defending that belt against Jamaine Ortiz, again, a very young fighter. We're talking 26-year-old Teofimo Lopez against 27-year-old Jamaine Ortiz. This is one of the more athletic fighters Teofimo Lopez will have been in the ring with. Jamaine Ortiz first made a big splash when he pretty much, I would say, dominated Jamel Herring, which prompted Jamel Herring to retire. Jamel Herring has since come back. But Jamaine Ortiz was very impressive in that one. He just looked like he was very fast-handed, two-fisted. He switches stances, goes from orthodox to southpaw pretty frequently. Just a couple fights prior to that, he had fought to a draw with Joseph Adorno, but this was still prime-ish Joseph Adorno. We have since seen him get beaten by Elvis Rodriguez. We saw him get dominated by Edwin De Los Santos. But Jamaine Ortiz, 2 fights after that fight against Adorno, beat Jamel Herring convincingly, soundly, and then he entered a fight against Vasily Lomachenko. And, this wasn't a robbery in terms of who won the fight. You could make a case for Vasily Lomachenko, even though I know a lot of people who still swear to this day, and they've rewatched the fight again and again, still think that Jamaine Ortiz at least fought to a draw or probably should have edged it against Lomachenko. I thought that you could have a multitude of scores, but either way, it looked like a very close fight. So I don't think that Lomachenko flat out winning was a robbery. But when you look at the scorecards, it was 115 to 113, 116 to 112. Even then, I think that that's very sketchy. 8 rounds to 4, Lomachenko over Jamaine Ortiz. I did not see that. I saw it 7 to 5 Ortiz, 6 to 6, or maybe 7 rounds to 5 Lomachenko. But the third judge had it 117 to 111. Like, they had it 9 rounds to 3 Lomachenko. That is a robbery. Sometimes it's not about who wins and who loses, but if you look, the details matter. When you look at the scorecard and you see, oh, that's how it happened. Yeah, that part of the equation, that part is a robbery. That was ridiculous. Jamaine Ortiz fought Vasily Lomachenko very evenly. Yes, he did fatigue late in the fight. Yes, Lomachenko did win a couple or a few of those rounds in the second half, but Lomachenko absolutely had his hands full with Jamaine Ortiz. And then Ortiz was out of the ring for a while. He had a back injury, I believe, that he was recovering from. He gets back into the ring like 11 months later against Antonio Moran. If that name sounds familiar, that was the last guy that Devin Haney knocked out badly, because he did get a stoppage over Zayor Abdullayev after that. But Devin Haney scored a highlight reel knockout against Antonio Moran. And Moran, in his latest fight, actually just beat Romero Duno. I think that Antonio Moran right now is as good as he's ever been in terms of his fight performance. But Jamaine Ortiz fought Moran in September of 2023. And Jamaine Ortiz did not look great in that one. For as good as he looked against Lomachenko and against Jamel Herring, Jamaine Ortiz got hurt badly in the second round. He got hurt again, this time to the body, because he got clipped by a left hook up top in the second round. He got hurt again in the 5th round, but it was by a body shot, which had him doubling over, going into the ropes. And then he caught Moran late in that same 5th round, and he hurt Moran, had Moran totally staggering. So this ended up being a very close and competitive fight, and it was a fight that Jamaine Ortiz did dig deep and ended up winning a unanimous decision. So this, again, was not a super impressive showing. He looked very vulnerable. There was a lot of question on, should he still be fighting at 135? Is it the weight cut? Because he looked very big against Moran. And so after that, Jamaine Ortiz leaves the division, goes up to 140, and this fight against Teofimo Lopez is his 140-pound divisional debut. So when I size up Teofimo Lopez versus Jamaine Ortiz, first, I think that the betting odds are way too wide for this one. Teofimo Lopez, as it stands, is going off at he's like a 6-1 favorite. Jamaine Ortiz is roughly a 6-1 underdog. That is way too wide. If you look at not only Jamaine Ortiz's performances when he's been at his best, yes, this again is a divisional debut. So if that is the trepidation, okay, but maybe he could perform even better because the weight cut could have been impacting him in his latest fight. But also Teofimo Lopez's inconsistency. I feel like last time he was in this situation where he was hot off of a career-defining win, like the one against Lomachenko, like now against Josh Taylor. Is Teofimo Lopez taking his foot off the gas? Is he distracted? He's got a lot of personal issues and has had issues over the years. It's what he pointed to when he underperformed against Nakatani. It's what he pointed to when he lost against George Kambosos, when he fought Sandor Martin and had a ton of difficulty there. It just seems to be a reoccurring theme. So now that he's entering this fight against Jamaine Ortiz, a fight that he is supposed to win after having a fight that he, at least in terms of betting odds, wasn't supposed to win, is he going to be as locked in for this fight against Jamaine Ortiz as he was for the fight against Josh Taylor? I would like to think that yes. I would like to think that he has learned from his past mistakes in terms of taking his eye off the ball. And if he knows anything about Jamaine Ortiz, he knows how fast of a puncher he is. He knows how athletic he is. He knows how much he gave Lomachenko hell. So this is not the guy to take lightly. And I feel like Teofimo Lopez is smart enough to realize that, especially if he wants to then get in position to make big money, because you could argue he has relatively been underpaid when you compare him against, some of the other elite or near elite fighters in the sport. I mean, he took short money to fight Lomachenko. He's made more money since, but he's been voicing his displeasure over how much he's been getting paid fight over fight, to the point where he, after the Taylor fight, said that he was retiring and said that they're just not paying me enough. Well, okay, that ended up not being the case in terms of his retirement, but money is an issue, and I'm sure he wants to have some mega paydays. If he loses this fight against Jamaine Ortiz, that would be such a significant setback, as was the fight against George Kambosos and that loss. So some things to consider with Lopez versus Jamaine Ortiz. It's interesting. Like I said, Ortiz is one of the few fighters, if not the most athletic fighter, Teofimo Lopez will be in there with. I mean, if you think that Lomachenko is a better athlete, well, is Lomachenko still a better athlete at 33 or however old he was, Lomachenko, when he fought Teofimo Lopez? Is that Lomachenko a better athlete than a 27-year-old Jamaine Ortiz? Well, if you look at Lomachenko versus Ortiz, it didn't look that way in the ring. Yes, Lomachenko, again, he did fight strong, and he did win some of the rounds in the second half of the fight. But Ortiz is also significantly bigger than Lomachenko. Lomachenko was always a small 135 guy. Well, Teo is now up at 140, fighting another big lightweight who is now up at 140. So there is that component. I could see Jamaine Ortiz giving Teo a lot of problems early, especially when he's fresh, right? Jamaine Ortiz will start around. He'll start flicking out a very commanding looking jab. It's a fast jab. It's a stiff jab. And he'll change levels. He'll feint and then throw the jab. Well, I think that Jamaine Ortiz probably matches Teofimo Lopez in hand speed. I don't think he matches him in punching power. Teo, I expect and I believe to be the stronger, harder hitter. I think that he's established that much. Not to say that Jamaine Ortiz is pillow-fisted or anything near it, but Teofimo Lopez has the punching power advantage, but hand speed, it might even be a slight hand speed advantage for Jamaine Ortiz. It's interesting because I was kind of thinking something similar when Shakur Stevenson was about to fight Edwin De Los Santos, which ended up being one of the worst fights of the year. But I just thought that it would be an interesting dynamic to see Shakur in there with somebody who appeared to be about as fast and who arguably maybe hits harder than Shakur Stevenson. Jamaine Ortiz doesn't hit harder than Lopez, but Lopez won't necessarily be the faster puncher between the two. Not only that, but Lopez tends to throw one, maybe two shots at a time. He's very precise. He's looking to catch you slipping coming in and then throwing a fast counter with his hard, devastating right hand, or even with his quick check left hook. Jamaine Ortiz, however, is a better combination puncher. Jamaine Ortiz will get inside. He'll work the body. He'll go up top. He'll throw 3 to 5 punches. He throws a lot of punches, which also kind of puts him in trouble because he starts to fatigue in the middle round. So I think that managing the gas tank might be an issue for Jamaine Ortiz, but he puts combinations together better, I believe, than Teofimo Lopez does, or he's at least more willing to throw combinations than Lopez. But unlike Vasily Lomachenko, where the game plan for Jamaine Ortiz, if you listen to his trainers, was be first, get off first. Don't let Lomachenko start to set up shop and to settle in. No, as soon as Lomachenko starts to square up and starts to come forward, no, double jab, hit him to the body, throw that right hand, switch stance, hit him with the basically get off first, beat up on the older man, push him back, right? You don't want to do too much of that against Teofimo Lopez. Just like Teofimo Lopez got reckless against George Kambosos and got caught, Teofimo Lopez will make you pay if you get reckless and start coming in hot. So I don't think that the game plan for Jamaine Ortiz will be the same here as it was against Lomachenko. So what do? Well, I think that he's going to be trying to establish a jab, like repeatedly. I don't think he's going to be doing too much switching to southpaw, but we'll see. He ended up switching to southpaw a lot against Antonio Moran, especially when he started to struggle. But here's the thing. If Antonio Moran was able to catch him slipping and catch him mid-exchange, because when you start throwing a lot of punches, and again, whether or not it's the game plan, Jamaine Ortiz, I feel by nature, instinctually, likes to throw a lot of punches. Well, if you keep on playing that Russian roulette with a puncher like Teofimo Lopez, he will make you pay mid-exchange, if not with the first punch, with the second punch. So again, I can see Jamaine Ortiz maybe winning 2 out of the first 3 rounds against Teofimo Lopez. I could see Lopez eating jabs. I could see Lopez eating straight right hands. I could see Lopez getting beat to the punch. I could see Lopez getting backed up into the ropes, worked a bit, hit to the body, and just outfought in certain moments where Jamaine Ortiz is getting off first or getting off last. But I think that same approach will end up coming back to bite him. I think that in the middle rounds, especially when his defense starts to erode a little bit, because Jamaine Ortiz is a good mover. He'll move laterally. He'll move in and out. He does change levels. He does, he feints a lot too. Josh Taylor wasn't feinting enough against Teofimo Lopez. Again, I saw wilting in Josh Taylor's legs. He started to get a lot stiffer, becoming a lot more predictable, standing up straight, just fighting like he had a sore lower back or something. He fought like an old man or an older, aging fighter later in the fight, where Teofimo Lopez didn't have to worry about somebody changing levels, feinting. Nah, Josh Taylor started doing less and less of that. Jamaine Ortiz will do that very well, and he'll also punch and then dip. He'll punch and slide, step at an angle, try to get out of the way and get right back to work. But again, a lot of that stuff starts to erode as he tires in the middle rounds. And this is a 12-rounder. Remember how tired he started to look against Lomachenko later on in the fight? Even though I do think Jermaine Ortiz did steal a round or 2 in the final rounds against Lomachenko. Well, Teofimo Lopez carries his punching power throughout the fight, although his latest knockouts are only like in the 7th round when he knocked Pedro Campa out in the 7th. Same thing against Diego Magdaleno. It was a 7th round stoppage, but he did drop George Kambosos, like I believe in the 8th or 9th round. So his punching power does tend to carry. Jamaine Ortiz, I think it's going to get a little bit sloppier as you get into the middle rounds. I think there are going to be a lot more exchanges, tired exchanges, where both guys are throwing like 2 to 4 punches. I think Jamaine Ortiz's head movement as he enters the pocket and throws his punches, he's gonna get caught slipping. I think that his chin's gonna be out there as he tires. And I think Teofimo Lopez is actually gonna catch him and probably drop him. Now, again, if Teofimo Lopez is not focused and locked in, he can lose this fight. Because again, he's going to be matched from a physical standpoint, I believe. Speed, physicality, athletically, creativity. Jamaine Ortiz is a pretty creative puncher, but I think that it's going to be the patience of Teofimo Lopez and his boxing IQ that'll get him past the finish line here. I think he's going to hurt Jamaine Ortiz at some point of the fight, but I'll give Jamaine Ortiz the benefit of the doubt. I think he's got a lot of heart. I think he's going to be fighting with a lot of spirit. I feel like he thinks that he arguably won against Lomachenko. So I think that Jamaine Ortiz still sees himself as an elite fighter. Again, I don't know what to make out of his lackluster performance where, again, he got hurt multiple times against Antonio Moran. I'm going to say that maybe weight has something to play or something to do with that, but I also think that the facts remain the same in that Jamaine Ortiz is there to get hit mid-exchange if you're able and quick enough and have the wherewithal to punch with him as he lets 2 to 4 punches go. I think Teofimo Lopez knows what he's doing. I think he's going to catch him, probably drop him, but I think that Jamaine Ortiz will do enough to survive those tough moments. I think Jamaine Ortiz will win some rounds, and I think that he will ultimately take Teofimo Lopez the distance, but I expect Teofimo Lopez to win something like 8 rounds to 4, 7 rounds to 5. I think especially in the early rounds, it's going to be very interesting to see how Teofimo Lopez deals with the athleticism and the hand speed and the volume of Jamaine Ortiz. I just think that he's going to end up figuring it out, and ironically, it's going to be Jamaine Ortiz who over pursues a little bit too much and starts getting hurt like Teofimo Lopez over pursued against George Kambosos and got hurt. But yeah, I'm taking Teo via unanimous decision over Jamaine Ortiz. Now, if Teo gets a stoppage here, that'll be one of the better wins of his career. And it will hopefully set something up really big. Even if he wins by decision, I hope that something big is in Teofimo Lopez's near future. It might require some cross-promotional efforts because he's on Top Rank, and Teo, at least verbally, in the way that he's kind of expressing himself, sees himself as the man at 140 because he beat the man that is Josh Taylor. Devin Haney, yes, he does have that WBC belt that he won off of Regis Prograis, and Devin Haney probably makes more per fight, I would imagine, than Teofimo Lopez, just the way that the Haneys have been handling their business. I just feel like they have been doing more to make more on a per fight basis. Devin Haney seems to have more options. I think that they are looking at making a Ryan Garcia fight or something good. And I don't think it's going to be like a Richardson Hitchens or a Sandor Martin fight. I hope it's not for Devin Haney's sake. I hope he's able to get a fight together with Ryan Garcia. But the question remains, what do you then do with Teofimo Lopez, who is still, the Ring magazine #1 in the division, who will be coming off of consecutive wins against Sandor Martin, even though that was a problematic, controversial decision, and then Josh Taylor, and then Jamaine Ortiz. Teofimo Lopez will have won 4 straight. He will have been pretty much on a roll. I just hope that they're able to get something together promotionally that can excite fight fans. Like, I don't think it's going to be against Subriel Matias. He's on PBC. I don't see the Top Rank PBC cross-promotional efforts happening there. Jose Ramirez is with Matchroom now, I believe, or with Golden Boy. I think he's with Golden Boy. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that, I know that he's a DAZN fighter now. And if they weren't able to get that together, which it tells me that Teofimo Lopez isn't interested in fighting Jose Ramirez, and Jose Ramirez is probably asking for a lot of money too. Bob Arum's probably like, nah. So if they couldn't do it when they were both on Top Rank, I don't see that cross-promotional fight happening. Teofimo Lopez versus Regis Prograis. I don't know what Prograis is going to do going forward. Jack Catterall, it looks like it's most likely going to be a rematch between Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall. I don't think Teofimo Lopez is going to fight Richardson Hitchens. Again, that would be Top Rank and then Matchroom to make that one happen. And I don't think Lopez is interested in fighting Richardson Hitchens. There's Arnold Barbosa, Gary Antoine Russell, which, I mean, damn, what's happening with him? He's good. I want to see him in some meaningful fights. And I don't see a rematch between Teofimo Lopez and Sandor Martin. I know Lopez was calling out Terrence Crawford. I don't expect that to happen. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how they pave a path forward, assuming Teofimo Lopez gets past Jamaine Ortiz, which again is no easy task. I think, once again, that the lopsided odds are misleading. You might want to take Jermaine Ortiz if you don't make too much of his lackluster performance against Antonio Moran. And if you feel like he's going to be better and at his best at 140 against Lopez, you might want to consider putting something on Jermaine Ortiz. But yeah, let me know what your thoughts on Teofimo Lopez versus Jermaine Ortiz are. Who do you think wins this one, and how do you see Lopez and Top Rank forging a path forward, giving the promotional politics in and around the 140-pound division? Please let me know your thoughts. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.